Hello, welcome to What the Flick. I am Christy, that is Alonso, that is Matt. We are talking about the new Ridley Scott movie, All the Money in the World. You may have heard of it. It has changed recently. Matt, tell us about it.
All the Money in the World is the story of the kidnapping of J. Paul Getty, or John Paul Getty, grandson of...
The third.
He was getting to that.
I was getting to that. Anyway, grandson of J. Paul Getty, the oil baron at one point, as the movie will tell you, the richest man who may have ever lived. It was set in the 70s, and there's what's interesting about this movie, among other things, is that Christopher Plummer plays J. Paul Getty, but he wasn't supposed to play it originally. Originally it was Kevin Spacey, but no one likes Spacey anymore, so he got cut out and replaced by Plummer, and it fits into a pretty terrific movie. Let's watch the clip.
You carry a gun, Mr. Chase?
I never bothered. Ruins the line of your suit.
You used to be a spy. My child is a prisoner.
$17 million.
Oh, they will take his eye, his ear, the hand, and don't tell me you don't have the money.
My former father-in-law only buys the best. It's time for you to do whatever it is he pays you to do.
I do not have the money to spare.
No one has ever been richer than you are at this moment. What would it take for you to feel secure?
More.
Yeah, so Matt and I saw this together, and we did a little Wind the Flick review about it afterward, and we were very impressed by the fact that if you did not know anything about this, if you did not know any of the drama or the backstory of why Kevin Spacey is not in it and Christopher Plummer is, it's seamless.
Oh yeah.
You would know. It's Ridley Scott is such a master
seamless
of like digital effects, and just he's such an efficient director that he makes it all work.
Yeah, and I mean, Plummer's in this movie a lot.
He is.
Like, when I heard it, I thought, oh, it must be just a few scenes. And there's only really one scene where I even got a whiff of like, oh, they just green screened him in.
Yeah, there's
Everything
that one
else,
shot in the desert.
Exactly.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, everything else, like, no, they had to bring back Mark Wahlberg and Michelle Williams to do these scenes again with a different actor in these like complicated sets, and like it's not just to shove them in. Like they had to remake chunks of this movie on them, and they did it fast, and
in
they
like
did it
6 weeks.
Yeah, and they did it really well. And Plummer's one of the best things in the movie. He's great.
Yeah, and when you look at the pictures of what Kevin Spacey was going to look like in the old man makeup, it's super jarring. And Christopher Plummer is who Ridley Scott wanted originally anyway, so it all works out for us all.
And if you see pictures of Getty, they actually do kind of look alike.
I like this movie a lot. Christopher Plummer puts in a terrific performance. Michelle Williams is great.
Yes.
She's really, really good. Almost steals the movie, although it's hard to do that if you're the lead character. I think Mark Wahlberg's very good in this. He kind of dials it down from where he's not over the top. There's one scene, one kind of soliloquy that he gets towards the end where it's like, okay, there's the accent.
He's a little miscast, but
I had a hard time at first accepting him as like slick and kind of polished former CIA guy. But yeah, eventually glimmers of a roughness come out to him. So maybe that's the point of the character, is that that's who he truly is, and he's trying to affect a facade otherwise.
Yeah, I thought this movie moves along really nicely, especially in the beginning. It stays tense. There's a lot of things going on in different places, and it keeps this sense of urgency and this sense of tension. It jumps back and forth, and not just in location, but also in time. And you never really feel that lost. I think it loses a little bit of steam towards the third act, but apart from that, I really like this.
I think there are a few minor pacing issues, because it becomes sort of repetitive after a while, where you have the kidnapping, and you have the ransom demands, and then the ransom demands are being met, and there's the renegotiation of the ransom demands, and you could have played that. I think a different director would have played that for more of a dark comedy, because J. Paul Getty, the richest man in the world, is like a total cheapskate, even when it comes to like his beloved namesake grandson. But some of those scenes started to feel a little samey after a while, and I was kind of like, can we just get to wherever this is going to go? The kid who plays the kidnap victim is an actor named Charlie Plummer, who is not related to Christopher Plummer, who's really good in a movie that I saw at a festival this year called Lean on Pete, that A24 is releasing next year. Keep an eye out for it, it's really good. Okay, also really good in this is Romain Duris as Cinquanto, who is one of the kidnappers, but he's sort of like the main one who actually becomes his buddy and takes care of him. And it's a very complicated, kind of layered performance, because he has to be a different version of himself at all times, and he's constantly trying to calibrate who that is. And yeah, the kid is great in
in it. Yeah, it's really tense. It's really solidly made, beautifully shot. Dariusz Wolski is your DP, and I was telling Matt this, that there's one shot that is so gorgeous when John Paul Getty III is a little boy, and his grandfather is meeting him really early on, and they're holding hands and they're walking through a tunnel, and it looks like it's snowing, in the ruins of Rome, and it looks like it's snowing.
Hadrian's castle,
and he's imbuing him with his legacy, and you're a Getty, and this is why it matters, and but it looks like it's like tactile and gritty, but also kind of dreamlike at the same time, and it's just shot very, very beautifully. All the period detail,
and it's a Plummer scene. That's a scene they had to do.
There you go. The period detail, the cars. We didn't talk about the cars.
Really good,
So tell me, are the cars accurate?
Yeah, the cars are pretty accurate. I liked that in Britain you see Wahlberg driving around in that Jensen Interceptor. That was pretty cool. That would fit that character, the British car with the big American V8. And there was one scene early on where you see, kind of in the streets of Rome as young Getty's like right before the kidnapping, and there's all these really fancy cars, all these beautiful like European coupes and a Thunderbird, and right in the middle of that line is a bug. And it's like.
But that's in the early 70s. That would have totally been there.
Maybe, but like it's all these other really fancy little coupes, and I was like, the Bug seems a little out of place with the Alphas and the Fiat.
Look,
but
if you can find a parking place in Rome, you take a parking place.
And
in
that
Rome.
whole sequence, it's one long tracking shot following John Paul Getty III as he's walking through the street, and it feels like a Fellini homage almost, like just the energy of the street.
Yeah,
and
I was thinking about Roma. Yeah,
the prostitutes are all talking to him, and yeah, he's got like a rock star thing about him, but also a boyish kind of sweetness about him, and yeah, it's really good.
One of the things we had talked about that was Michelle Williams' performance, in that you see her character Gail, kind of when she's talking to Getty, she changes how she talks, and there's more of an affectation, this kind of mid-Atlantic voice that she puts on that when she's just kind of hanging with the kids isn't there. And I thought that was an interesting performance choice. I think it worked really well, but you see her kind of put on this kind of armor and clothing to fit in with that crowd. And because then she later's like, I'm not a Getty, I'm just an in-law, I'm not part of the family. And that becomes a little bit of her defense for not having any money. It is this fascinating glimpse of a guy that, it's a thing that we talked about this a little bit too, is that a guy like Getty, you see the moves he makes in that he refuses to pay, this is not much of a spoiler, it's in the trailer, he refuses to pay the ransom. Because he says, well, then he'd have 14 other ransoms he'd have to pay for the rest of the grandchildren. But you also see there's scenes where he is this miserly penny pincher in other respects too. And he talks about how to be wealthy, not how to get wealthy. He talks about the book. And my thought there's that certain type of person who you achieve great wealth, and part of how you hold on to it is that you do pinch every penny. Like you never get to a point where you're suddenly spending things. It's like
and somebody asked him like, what would it take for you to finally feel secure? And he's like, more,
right? And he invests in things,
right? And it's a mindset of you can't, that idea of hoarding and that idea of like watching every the money that it would cost to do the laundry at the hotel he's at is as important to him as the ransom he refuses to pay. Like it's every penny counts, and that's, you kind of see that in this character and the way it's written. And I thought that was really kind of an interesting, like, oh yeah, that's all he kind of cares about.
Yeah, well, he's a very complicated guy and not a likable guy, and the movie doesn't really let him off the hook.
No.
Total opposite of The Greatest Showman, by the way. Somebody who was an awful guy, which they show us in like every color of his awfulness.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the kaleidoscope of awfulness. But yeah, but he's fascinating, and you can't stop watching him.
Yeah, thanks to this movie, I will now think of the art treasures at the Getty Villa as the real ending of Citizen Kane.
Yes, there you go. It's really good. My number's a 7.3. I agree, it kind of drags a little bit toward the end when it should be building up steam, but I liked it very much. It's very, very well made.
I said a 7. It's a solid film and some really good performances, and people should see it.
Yeah, I was really impressed and surprised by this, so I give it an 8.3. Okay,
our number's at 7.4. It's at 90%, but they just screened it, so I'm sure that number will change. And so, but yeah, go check it out. Very smart, very, very well made. Bye-bye.